All right, and we're back. It is COMP 2007. That's Enterprise Computing, and it's week 6, part 1 of our broadcast in the summer 2016 semester. We're talking about security today. We should do some public service announcements too next week. Remember that, I'm going to pull up this thing too. Next week, remember that we have our exam. Again, in this class, it's we're going to start sharp at 5. The exam will run midterm. We'll run for about, I'm going to gear it for about an hour and a half. Some of you may finish in an hour. Some of you may finish in an hour and a half. Some of you may never finish. We may never see some of you again, right? I don't know. But it's going to be, during class time. So again, for the morning classes, it'll be at 9. Afternoon will be at 1 o'clock. If you're normally part of the morning class or the afternoon class, as an example, it'd be nice if you showed up for your regular shift at work. At school. But if you really can't, and if you want to work, if you want to come to this time, just gotta let me know, and then I'll open up the section for you one more time. It'll be closed, and I'll open it, and we'll do that kind of dance we've been doing this week. So you can sit wherever you like, and as long as you get your exam done, we're good to go. Exam is going to be based on what we've done so far. So we're gonna, if you think that we're not going to do anything about entity framework, identity, all that stuff we're doing today. Basic web controls, web forms, master, site master, those kind of things, all master pages. Bootstrap, you'll be asked to do some stuff, style your pages, a certain way or whatever. All the things we've done so far will be on there. Will you have to, deploy to GitHub and to Azure? Absolutely, right? So please be prepared to do that, right? So if your Azure is not working or something like that, that's going to be very bad for you. So those are the things that are going to happen. You're going to build something. It's be a practical exam. There's not going to be any true, false, multiple choice or any written part to it whatsoever. It's all practical, which some people love and some people really hate because it's challenging. It's you have to know your stuff. It's either you know it or you don't, right? It'll be purely open book, open internet. You'll have access to your code, my code, whatever you have to do. So it'll help you build whatever you need to build in the hour and a half that it's built for. But again, like I said, there'll be people who sit there and try and perfect and get as many bonus marks as possible until the end. And that's perfectly fine. We're here till the end. Do what you have to do. To study, keep working on your project with your partner. Look at your labs, those kind of things. There really isn't a way to study. Either you've been working all this time to get to your exam or you haven't, right? But if you haven't somehow, and let's just suppose you don't understand some stuff, then take a look at the entity framework. Take a look at how you make connections. You should know how to do full CRUD with the entity framework. You should know at least where to look to get it, right? Where is it? Does it exist? Yes. And how to make it work. Grid view. If you don't know how to make a grid view, how to use a grid view, that would be very bad, right? Like these are the things that we're going to expect a grid view on your exam next week. And that's it in a nutshell. I don't think there's anything else to talk about too much around that. And then we're into a break, and when we come back from break, it's right into MVC 5, right? Or if we can do MVC core a little bit of, I'd like to try and fit some of that in, and maybe if we can get to it by the end, Web API with maybe a little bit of Angular front end. We'll see how it goes, right? So instead of just a pure ASP.NET front end, we'll use Angular. So that's really it in a nutshell. Let's talk about what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be talking about security. And if you look online here, under week 6 learning, we have a bunch of pages that I've kind of put together, right, for us. We're going to, instead of like slogging it all out, we're going to use some of these pages to cut and paste to save us some time. As well as, I've got this, if you click on this link here, it's going to take you to an online tutorial that Microsoft has created for us to kind of go through and do things like, adding identity, which is the security piece, to an empty or existing web forms project. How do I do that? Kind of thing. And we can't use the whole thing. Why? Because it's made in October 23rd, 2013. So some of it's not going to work the same way. And also, this one connects to a local database, and we want to connect up to Visual, to Azure, right? So for today, I'm going to be using a template that we made last week. So I'm going to go, let's pull up Visual Studio. For you to follow along in this one, I highly recommend you wait until I get the template going, and then afterwards just download that, because we're going to have to make a template, and then from there I'm going to start off with week 5, lesson C. So this lesson from last week, because we were the most complete, as always, right? So let's start off with this one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a during this time, I'm going to create a template. So I'm going to go File, Export, File, Export Template, and then from there we're going to create template 3C, template 3C, because you've got other templates in there. I'm going to kind of click Finish and let that go. What this is going to do, of course, is create a copy of this stuff. And I'm going to close this off, close solution, and we're going to create a new solution, new project based off our templates. So you can see that there's template 3C I'm using right now, and I'm going to call this lesson 6C, right? Lesson 6C, and press OK. And what this is going to do, of course, is going to kick off the template we have. It's going to recreate our project. I'm not going to touch our other project from last week, so we still have that GitHub stuff from last week, where you can compare the difference, things that we've changed from last week to this week if you really care, or that kind of thing. And at the same time, when my project is finished creating, and of course the phone starts ringing, right? Yeah, can't answer you now. Can't answer you now. All right. So we've got our little model kicked off here, but we need to make some changes, right? So this is one. Notice that when we were talking about security, and one of the things we're talking about today, if I look at my SQL server that I'm accessing, COMP2007 database.windows.net, that's mine. Please don't use my database today. Try and make it connected to your own, all right, if you can. So after I put this up on GitHub, see if you can't connect on your own. You'll be able to experience the whole thing about creating database and all that stuff. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to Team Explorer, and I'm going to go to Sync, and I'm going to let Visual Studio create the repository for me by going here and then pointing at Georgian, and now it's going to be called COMP2007 Summer 2016 Lesson 6C. There we go. So that should be created in no time. There we go. So you can always download from there. This is where our start would be, okay, if you want to follow me here. So we've got our basic stuff going on, and what I want to point out is when we create our tables and our databases for today, what's going to happen is last week we had a few tables, right? Let me pull them up here for a second. And notice there's a bunch more. Well, these were all created tables. I'm just going to get rid of them here. And sometimes what happens is, and I kind of pointed this out earlier, you get, whenever you're deleting stuff from your table, sometimes what we get is Visual Studio is busy. Who's gotten that message? It's almost like a blue screen of death these days, right, from Visual Studio. Visual Studio is busy. You have to please wait, you know, kind of thing, and then we'll get back to you soon. You know, call waiting. You know, you hear the call waiting thing, and then we'll get back to you. So I'm going to delete these things only because I want to have a chance to start the database from scratch again. I want to show you that. But if you notice, there we go. If you notice, it takes a little bit of time for me to do some of this stuff. Like I put on my command, and then it's busy. So if I click on here again, I'm going to get a busy signal because I'm trying to delete something, right, like this one. So if I try and put the delete message out there again a couple times, Visual Studio will crash, right? It'll say, I'm busy, Tom, what are you trying to do to me, right? So I can close Visual Studio off. This is a good thing, good practice. Reopen it. Please, whatever you do in the middle of a, you know, sometimes Visual Studio will crash. Please try and recover files. If it asks you for recovering files, recover them. Otherwise, it'll crash and you won't work properly ever again, right? So you'll have to like recreate your project from scratch. There'll be connections that won't work. Sometimes it'll even break Visual Studio itself. Be very careful. It's I'm not going to say it's fragile, but there's opportunities where things don't quite work the way you like them to. All right, so I'm just going to do this one more time. All I'm doing here is cleaning up the tables, but the nice thing to notice is that there are new tables we're going to create. This is where I want to take you back to with our the process we're going to use today. So, and again, I could use SQL Management Studio. That's a better version. I'd have to log in there to do that, and that'll be a little bit, the table deletion will be a lot faster than what I'm doing here, right? Okay, let's check this out. See if we can finally get some traction on deleting. We still have 3 more tables to delete. And I want to delete them not because you know, it's urgent or anything like that, but because if we delete these tables, then we can start from scratch, and I can show you the whole process from the beginning. Well, here's something we need to change for sure. I'll wait till this is done. But in our web config, right, one of the things we need to do here is we're going to have a problem. All right, so here's our web config. I'll open this up for you guys to see this. Our web config has a couple things in the bottom here we need to change. And one of the things is our default connection has got to go. We're going to add in something called identity, right? And identity likes to use the default connection string. So this is one thing we need to change the name of this string to something else. Right now it services our Contoso University database. I wonder if this is locked out again. Let's see if it's done. Oh yeah, it's actually working now. There we go. I'll wait till that. Hopefully that'll disappear in good order, and then I can finish off. Oh yes, there we go. Let's try that. I think I'm on a roll here, so I better keep going. Otherwise, you know. So again, all I'm doing is deleting each table, so that way we can start from scratch. But notice that our connection string says default connection. I can't have the connection string say default connection because identity, security, and Owen requires default connection. Now, there's other ways to do this thing. I'm just trying to kind of make it the simplest way. That's good. So what we want to do is rename this connection. Let's do that now. So last day, what I've been doing is, and for this morning and for this afternoon's class, I've renamed the connection default connection EF. I think that's a really bad name. Let's call it Contoso connection. All right, so I'm going to rename this Contoso connection. Right? Now that I'm thinking about it again, so we'll save that. Well, we can't just rename the connection. Okay, this is just one piece. What else do we have to rename? Well, if you look at the Solution Explorer here, and if I kind of clip it on here for a second, you can see that we have our Contoso model, and inside our Contoso model, we have a context. And this, my friends, is where we have to change everything. So in here, you notice that we have something called default connection. Well, there is no more default connection. We just got rid of it. So we need to, you know, refactor this thing and rename it. So we're going to kind of highlight it, right-click. I'm going to rename, and I'm going to rename this thing so it says Contoso connection. Contoso. Apply. And what this is going to do is take these references that it's going to make and refactor everything down the line. Also, notice here, this is default connection. This could also change to Contoso connection. So Contoso, whatever you want to call it. I called it default connection EF this morning. At the end of the day, it serves the same purpose. Now, if we've refactored properly, and this afternoon worked great as an example, but this morning it failed. I'm just letting you know. Let's see if it works. I'm going to go into, and this is somewhere to check. If I go into something like our students, right? And if I look at the CS file in the students, notice the CS file in the students connects to default connection. See, for me, it didn't work again. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So I need to redo this. So I can't. This won't work. This will fail. Default connection. It's got to be Contoso connection. So I need to kind of redo this one. And I get, you know, Contoso. It's not a Greek guy, Tom. Contoso connection. And what I want to do is make sure that I copy this and replace my default connection everywhere. In fact, what I probably should do is build my solution, let it break, right? And I probably did that earlier, and that's why it worked. Yeah, these are all the differences that I've made. Here's one. Default connection doesn't exist, right? Default connection's got to be replaced with Contoso connection, right? There we go. And you need to do this over and over again, so that way it's taken care of. There is no more default connection, and you'll see why. I mean, at the beginning you might say, well, it's crazy. Like the work we have to do to add in the identity framework or whatever. It's a lot. Yeah, it is. But you know, at the end of the day, it's actually quite straightforward if you look at it. All right, let's try build again and see if there's any more of those. Build solution. There's probably going to be another couple. Build failed. But where did it fail? Where, right? Probably in the student details page. Let's look at ASPX. Yeah, here it is. There we go. And I think that's it. I think we've captured all of it. Let's build one more time. Now, for you, if it worked for you the first time and it refactored everything, that's fantastic. For me, you can see that I still have areas that I have to do. I have to go through again. I think I got everything finally. and build one more time. I'll keep building it until it finally works, and if it doesn't, then oh, there you go. So build. So finally, I've refactored everything by hand. Now you may have to, if you're lucky enough, you would have. If you're smart enough, things I didn't do, you should have probably built your application, redone everything, run everything again, so that for the first time it makes all the connections, which I didn't do, and then when you refactor that one place, it refactors everything. Okay. So my Contoso connection works. Let's test it. I want the next thing to do is, of course, see if I can actually run the thing. If I can't run the thing, then something's still broken somewhere, right? So before we continue with this, I want to make sure this all works. And you can see that I can look at courses. Departments are empty, of course, because you guys did that one last time. And students. And if I click edit, I can go to my student, and it shows my student and all that kind of stuff. So this is all working fine now, which is good. All right. So to prepare for the next piece, we need to create a new connection, right? Now, again, I'd ask that you use your own databases for this one. But what we need to do is down into the dumps here, into our web.config. This is, back down to this. You see that we have a connection, right? And if I was going to show you the one we have right now, we have one Contoso connection. We need another one called default connection, back again, right? And that one is going to be the one that the identity framework uses to connect with the database and use security, right? So let's add that in manually. So we'll say add name is equal to, again, we want to call it default connection. Exactly those words. Can't be anything else. All right? Or the other thing that you want to put in here is the provider name. And the provider name has got to be a SQL provider. And I'm gonna kind of show you this in a second when I pull up my little cheat sheets. SQL provider is the one. Right now it uses something called entity provider, like data entity provider. So let's go in there and fix this problem. So we're going to go like this. In the provider name, you're going to put system.data.SQL client. There's my SQL client. And then the last piece, of course, is the connection string, which we don't have, right? So how do I get the connection string to put in there? Well, if you remember, if I go to my SQL Server Object Explorer, right, and I have my database connection right here, this is one place you can get it from. So I can right-click here, and I can go Properties. And if you notice over here, the connection string's over here. So I can kind of highlight that whole connection string by double-clicking. I can copy that, and I can go back to my connection string in here, and then paste. And now I have what I like to call a sanitized version of my connection string. So why did I do that? One thing I'm missing, of course, is the password has to be put, the right password has to be put in there. And of course, I'm using what I used last time, right? But it doesn't accept, for whatever reason, the entity framework with security does not like all this extra metadata that it's getting here from our model. Because we use ADO.NET and we use the whole data model idea where we did database first, it attached additional details that will make identity choke on this connection string. So we don't want that. So we want to sanitize the connection string and create this thing called default connection. And notice the position. It's first in line. It's not the second one. It's the first one. Then we have Contoso connection, which is the one just for our Contoso University. Okay, so a couple of connections here. Let's save this file and rebuild everything. Okay, so I'm just going to rebuild. I'm going to run this thing, build solution, and we should see build succeeded. Okay, at the end. All right, so what are we doing? Well, if you notice, if we follow the tutorial now, there's a couple of things we need to get ready. So one is, and in the tutorial, they ask you to kind of put together this empty web form. They chose authentication. There's no authentication because we're going to make it happen for you. And now we've got to install some Nuget packages. The first Nuget package we want to install is this thing called Microsoft ASP.NET Identity Entity Framework. Let's do that. So I'm going to pull up Solution, and I'm going to manage Nuget packages for Solution, right? And we're going to pull in that one. So I'm going to put in Identity. And we're going to, of course, click Browse to do this. Browse, Identity. And the first one, ASP.NET Identity Entity Framework, is this the one this is the one that I want. I'm going to click on my project, and I'm going to click Install. Now, what this is going to do is it has a dependency of Identity Core, which I need. right? So core is going to be installed along with it. I'm going to press OK. So this is the first one we need. First one we need, right? It's going to go across, grab everything, and install it here. We also need Owen, right? Let's grab this now early. Owen is our middleware that we use, right, to connect and to do things like OAuth and log in, log out, all that kind of stuff, right? The Entity Framework Identity, what it does is it uses Entity Framework to connect with ADO.NET as a middleware and to make it easier for us to connect to the database and create the database, right? So again, Owen is what we need. Let's install that one. When we install Owen, there's going to be a bunch of packages that come in. You can see there's a bunch of security packages that come in. Let's process that one. So lots of security packages, and we need one more. The one we need, if you skip down here, and if you're reading along here, there's, or if you're trying to go ahead, there's another one that we need further down, which is Microsoft Owen Host System Web. So again, I'll type that in. So Microsoft Owen Host System Web. This is the one. Okay. I'm going to add that one in here too. All right, so once we've got these ones, I guess I've added 4 or more in, 3 manually, and the rest was added in through dependencies. I've got a bunch of them that got added in that need updates, right? So if I click this X right here from a filtering perspective, I go to my updates. I can see that I have 6 updates. I'm going to update everything, all the packages, just so that way I have the latest and greatest packages. And you see there's a bunch of stuff that got updated. OAuth. Again, OAuth would be to use things like Twitter authentication, GitHub authentication, Facebook authentication, like we did in other classes, right? All right, when this is all done and it's updated, then we'll have 0 updates left, and then we'll have the latest package, okay? Oh, even have a Bootstrap update. That's weird that I have 3.35. That should be 3.36. Yeah, sure, update Bootstrap. I don't understand that. Should always have 3.36. I guess some package installed 3.35 for whatever reason. Okay, that's a new one. I never saw that earlier today. Oh, there's even more of them. Look, ASP.NET Script Manager and Jquery. Okay, this is neat. I never saw this happen before, but hey, what the hell? Is it doing what I'm doing? What happened to me too? This is weird. It's like this 3.36 thing. That's really weird. Yeah, I'm gonna do it one time and then leave it alone. It's gonna go to jQuery 2.2. Oh, you know why? Here's what's happened. jQuery is updated. That's why it's being weird. jQuery 3 is got to go downgrade to jQuery 2.2.4 because it won't work with Twitter Bootstrap version at all. Like if once you download and install jQuery, see this jQuery is trying to go to 3. That's incorrect. We never want to do that. This one we want to update. But if you update this one, it goes to 3. So these two leave alone because jQuery 3 is incompatible with Bootstrap 3.3.6. So please don't do these ones. That's new. That's a new one I saw today for the first time. All right, so we've got our packages. Let us update GitHub. So what we've done is we've just updated our packages and created our connection strings. I'm going to go to changes. You can see that there's a bunch of stuff I've gone in and out of. jQuery 2.2.3 went to 2.2.4, and a bunch of stuff happened. We're just going to say template created for security. We kind of updated our project for the security piece. We'll say yes, we'll save that. We'll go home and we'll go sync, and you'll have all my changes and everything else. That was weird. That was a weird dance we were just doing there. All right, so we've got our template. Now, what's the next step? So if I go back, skipped up to the top, after they installed the identity packages, what they're asking you to do is adding some pages. And what we want to do is we want to add 3 forms. If you look up here on week 6, I want to add a login page, a register page, and a main menu. So please go ahead. I just want you to do the front end piece. The code is right here. So if you actually open this up, you can see this is just the front end code. We've done this a lot. So instead of slogging it out and just writing it by hand, I've included a sample here, a snippet. Just grab these snippets up here like this, and then copy, go across, create a new file. We're going to say add web form with master page. We're going to call this login, and we're going to paste. So we don't need the top part. I'm going to rename the title. It's going to be login. Might as well do that work. And then Control V to paste. Now, if you notice, even if I took out all those extra spaces, there's lots of spaces here. It's okay. It's still going to work. One thing you need to do, though, for sure, is down at the bottom where we have our login button. That's going to cause a problem for us. So let's get rid of the login button click and make a new one. That's going to create another click event inside our login aspx.cs file. All right, this is good. So our login is done. Let's make the next one, our register page. So I'm going to say add, again, a new web form with master page. We're going to call it register. And then from here, I'm going to go back to the well and get the other code here, our register page. I'm going to copy this. Again, this is in weekly learning under week 6. So copy, go across here, get rid of the header, put in register as a title, right, and paste. So there's a register page. We got that in there too. For register page, we need to get rid of two events, because we have our cancel button.click event and our register button.click event. So we're going to get rid of those, and we're going to create some new events there just to recreate the event handlers. Okay, so we need to do those things. If you don't do those, you'll have a bit of an issue. It won't compile. Okay, that's done. Let's save this for now. There's our register page. We're just doing the front end right now, and we'll talk about the register pages in a second. Last page we have to do is called the main menu page. Now, this is something like it's optional, but we want a place where when you're logged in, a landing page to go when you're logged in to prove that you're logged in kind of thing. And that's what I'm using for. This is not exactly the only way you could have done this. You could have had other pages to go to, but for now, in your case, it would have been your main game screen. When you're logged in, you can go to your main game screen to modify that or whatever. Here's I'm copying it from here. Again, I'm going to Solution Explorer, adding another one, another web form with master page. And in here, I'm going to call this main menu, right? So all these pages are being added in. I'm killing the head part of my file. And inside here, I want to Control V to copy, right? Or paste, I mean. On the bottom, notice that this is just a set of links. So there's no buttons to update. This is okay. I just want to rename this thing on top here, Contoso menu. That's what it's going to be called. That's the name of the menu. There we go. All right, cool. We've got our 3 pages. Let's check them out and see what they are. Because we've added these 3 pages together. I'm going to go to my Solution Explorer here, and I'm going to kick off. Oh, wait, we're missing one more thing. Before we kick off this page, we're going to get an error. Because we're including OWYN, all right? OWYN is a piece of security that we're going to use, middleware. What it does is it says, hey, if the user is not logged in and I want to block a user from seeing a certain page, right, where do I go? I need a place to go. You got to tell me where to go when I hit a page I can't go to. And there's a special file we need to include called a startup.cs file that we have to add into our project to deal with that. So depending on where we are, it's going to redirect us back to that page. So in order for me to add that in, I'm going to right-click here, and I'm going to go to Add, New Item. And what we want to do here is at the top, I want to put in OWYN. I want to kind of search for OWYN. It's going to come up with this OWYN startup class. I need this one. It's going to go to the root folder. I'm just going to rename it from startup 1 to just startup and click Add. All right. Once I've done that, it gives me this startup class. Okay, leave it alone. You don't need to worry about that right now. All right, but you need this or else it'll crash. It won't work. If you try to run your page or whatever, build your site, it won't work right now. Okay, but for now that we've put that into play, we're good to go. Let's check out a login page and see what it looks like. So this is just the front end. I'm not going to fix it up too much. There's extra spaces, but who cares? And when we run this thing, if everything goes well, we should see a login page. Now, what I've done doesn't mean that you have to keep my style. What I fully expect to do is, if you're going to use this for your assignment, your project number 1, part 3 for security, that's fine. But please recolor it and everything else to match your style. All right, so please don't just use my page because it's easy to use, right? And you might not even like this way. I mean, I made it into a panel and so on. You may say, well, I don't like it, Tom. I don't want to make it a panel. I want to make it a different way of looking. Make it whatever way you like. But this is just a page for us to understand how to do security. So this is the first page, our login page. Let's check out the register page. Register page is very similar, right? And you can see that it's just a long form. Now I'm going to register with username, phone number, email, password, and confirm. Confirm password. That's what's going to happen here, right? So these are all the pages. And if I click these buttons right now, they don't do anything. So it's not going to do anything. It's going to ask me for my fields to fill in, but it won't go anywhere, right? Also notice that the password and the login page and the register page, they don't have a corresponding link up here, but we need to put that in. So we need to change our navigation to kind of understand that we can log in and register. So that's the first step. Let's take a look at one more, our main menu. Main menu is just a menu. So we'll pull that up for a second. And all it is a way to link to other pages. So remember, this is where we're going to land when we log in. Okay, it's not for any other reason. So if I click on the student list right now, it should work. I should get a student list. Should be able to edit the student. All that stuff is working right now. And that's what the main menu page is all about. If I go to the main menu page, I should be able to link to all these other pages. Okay, not all this is working right now. I mean, you may have gotten departments working for your lab 3, right? But I don't have mine working. Remember, this is the stub that we were working with last week. Okay. All right, so main menu is the third page. We've added 3 pages, and we want to be able to start adding security in here. Okay. How do we do that? Well, again, if you follow what it says from the online documentation, we've done this piece already. We've added the registration page or whatever. I want to build in the registration page with this code. So here's the code we can add in. And if you follow along, if you want to skip ahead and try and make this work, you can. But I'm going to show you a way that's going to use our form, because our form doesn't really match up with the stuff that's here, right? Our form is slightly different than the one that we made here because I modified it for my purposes, right? So let's use the stuff that I prepared, and I've got a couple cheat sheets here that I'm looking forward over right now. Let's take a look. And the first one is this register page that I want to build. All right, so let's go to it. So my register page, again, I'm going to get there by using the code behind file. So here's my register code behind file. Double click. And I'm not going to put anything in the page load event. My cancel button is pretty straightforward. I want to redirect right back to to the default page, right? And that means that it's going to be a response.redirect to tilde, defaults.aspx. One warning about tilde: you cannot use it on the front end in any control that doesn't have a run at server on it. And you got to think about that as well. Do I want to put run at server in every single control? Right? You may not want to, because it keeps accessing the server, makes your website very, very slow. Be careful. So the cancel button is not going to work, but now the register button is where all the magic happens. So let's try and talk about this. In order for me to enable the register button, I need a few using statements at the top. Let's put those using, just like we did with Entity Framework. These are required for identity and OWIN security, right? That's what we need. So these are the statements we need. Using Microsoft.ASP.NET.identity, right? That's the identity piece. Using Microsoft.ASP.NET.identity.entity framework. That's going to help us do identity better, right? Using Microsoft.OWIN, which is our middleware, .security. So those are the 3 we need when we do security here. We're going to copy this line over and over again. We're going to need in other places, and I'm not going to type it again. All right, now that we got that, we can go back to our registration link here. This is the button click event, and we're going to do something like this. We're going to create a new user store and user manager objects. That's what we want to create. These user store and user manager objects basically create a container for us to manage and deal with users in the database. So var, we're going to use the var syntax. Var, again, means implicit typing instead of explicit typing. We don't know what type it is, but we're going to assume our user store is going to be equal to a new user store, right? And we're going to use the angle brackets. Angle brackets means what type are you creating, Tom? Or are you making an identity user? Identity user is the one we want. And we have to end it off with parentheses. This format is the way of creating generics, right? So this is a generic user store, and the type that we're using is identity user. we're creating a new object. We're storing it in something called user store. Do the same thing with our user manager. Right? User manager is equal to a new user manager. Again, it's of type identity user. And this time we're going to pass in there our user store object. Right? So we've created a user store. Well, we're letting the user manager manage it. You're going to see these two lines being used a couple times across our application, here and there. We're also going to create a new user object. That's really important. So there's our user object. So we're going to say var user is equal to a new identity user, right? That's what we want to create. Now, typically, if we had a constructor that was the empty constructor like this, we could stop it. But we can also use curly braces in C#. Notice this syntax says, this is initializer syntax, and anything in the curly braces after the constructor can initialize the constructor's parameters. Okay? Let's do that. So we can do something like this. Username, take a look how it comes up. Because the context, it's an identity user, and one of the parameters is username. I don't have to, I'm not guessing it, I'm not making it up, it comes up for me. It is equal to, of course, what? Well, we're going to go to the form we just made, our registration form, which has a username text box, right? And so we're going to go username textbox.text. We're going to get the information from there and put it into the username, right? Again, we're going to do the same thing for our phone number. Oh, let me go back for a second. I use semicolon, it's got to be comma. Phone number, right, is equal to phone number textbox.text. And then the last one, of course, is email, where you can put in email textbox.text and get that information. Okay, good. So we're built up our user object, right? Notice I'm not mentioning ID. That's going to be self-generated, right? And ID normally in another database like we did last week. Remember last week is all about integer IDs, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not so with identity. Identity uses a string hash, right? So it's going to be a hash code. It's a string, a bunch of characters and numbers, right? And so it's not going to be a straightforward, ID. It's not going to be numeric, is what I'm saying, right? So that's why we don't generate it here. Okay, cool. So after we do that, what I want to do, we get something called an identity result, right? So we got identity result. We're going to create a result object. There's my result object. And basically what I'm going to say is, well, depending on, we're going to use the user manager, right, to create our new user, right, based on the user information above plus our password textbox.text, and we're going to hash to create a secure password. Okay, so this is what we're doing here. So basically, we're going to create a new user object, or a new user in the database, in the DB, and store the result in this result object right here, right? Okay, cool. So what are we doing here? So after we've done this, registration is done, right? But we don't just want to register. I mean, when you register, you go to a registration page on a site. You register, and then you kind of get logged in right away. Unless, nowadays you get like that two-step authentication thing happening where they go, please verify your email address, and then we'll verify you and you'll be logged in, right? For us now, we're going to keep it simple, and we're not doing that. But we want to kind of log in the user, so I can check to see if what my result is. So, check your results. Check if result is succeeded. Right? If the result is equal to succeeded, if result dot succeeded, right? Then that means that we've logged in, or we've registered. Right? Now we want to log in. Right? So what I want to do is and we're going to copy this text again, authenticate, right, and log in our new user. We're going to do, right? This is the next piece. So if we successfully registered, maybe that we have to say, maybe check if successfully registered, right? If we did that, then we want to authenticate our new user and redirect him to where he's supposed to go, right? So we're going to say var. We're going to make a new object called Authentication Manager. You can call it whatever you like, auth. We're going to relate it to the HTTP context We currently have the current user that we've got from when we registered. We're going to get the ON context, right? And we're going to attach the authentication parameter to it. So we're going to say, hey, what we're really doing is we're saying, get all my authentication information for the user and plop it into this new object called Authentication Manager, right? Authentication Manager has a lot of built-in operations or methods that we can use, right? That's the first step. Second, let's validate the user identity. So user identity is going to be equal to the user manager we created above, this one up here, right? Dot create identity, and we're going to pass in the user as well as a default authentication type, which is going to be application cookie. Now, that means that we're going to store our user information inside a session variable. All right, so once we've done that, we're going to use the Authentication Manager to sign in. So once we've done this, we sign in. That's what we're going to do. So we're going to say Authentication Manager dot, and we notice there's a bunch of options here that we have, right? Well, one of them is sign in. There's also sign out, if you notice. It's all built in. It's not like we have to, create this. And this is where the entity framework comes in to make our job easier again. We're going to say we're going to create a new authentication properties object, right? Which we're going to kind of leave empty for now. And then what we're going to do is we're going to populate the user as a user identity, right? So what's the user identity? Sign in. If we can put in some properties here for sign in, like, if you want the things to persist or so on. And we want to sign in with this new user identity we just created by checking the user object that we created up here with the application cookie session. We're going to tag that in. And so that way we can add that into the sign-in information. That means including the password and everything else. Okay, so once we've signed in, this does it right here. This signs us in. Okay, once we signed in, we want to redirect. So redirect to the main menu. Like I said, that's where I want to go, main menu page. So how does that work? Well, same as we've seen before, response.redirect, right? And we're going to say tilde main menu .aspx. All right, so that's what's going to do there. Now we're not done. So what if the result failed? How can the result fail when we register? Example would be if we have the same user we're trying to register. That could be a problem, right? I want to register the same username. Like I want to make another admin, as an example, or something else. We should never allow the same user to be created with the exact same username, right? So we need to check that. So if we result succeeded, but what about else it doesn't succeed? Because it gets blocked. And by the way, this happens automatically. I don't have to go and work hard. Identity does it all for me, right? It checks to see if there's a duplicate user already. Well, what I want to see is display our error, right, in the alert flash div. What does that mean? What's the alert flash div? Well, before we write this piece of code, I want to, again, redirect you back to our registration page. If you look at the registration page, there is a div that I've created right up here called alert flash. That's the ID, right? And what it is an alert danger. That's a Bootstrap class, right? That red class. And right now the visibility for it is false, so it's off. It's just invisible, right? And I also have a label that the div is wrapped around that allows me to change the status, the text, whatever I want in there, right? So the text label will appear when there's an error, and it'll appear on top of my registration page right here, right? So that's what I'm doing here. Let's go back. So what I'm saying here is take my status label, that label I just showed you, the text of that label, and assign it to the results.errors, whatever the error is. We want to get the first error or default. So if there's no error or if it's something funny, we don't want the thing to crash, right? And also, we want our alert flash div to become visible. Right? That's what we want to do. So all it's going to do is show us that alert. And we're going to test this out right now. When we create our new user, I want to make a user called admin, right? And then I'll try and do it again, all right? And see if the second time I do it, it'll fail, right? I'll let this thing update. Okay, let's test this out. So I want to run my register page. Let's run it for the first time, right? Now, please, if you're using please don't use my database here for a second. Give me a second to do it for me, right? To do it for you so it doesn't fail. One thing to note is I cannot put, here's my registration page. If I put admin, and if I put my phone number in here, so 416-555, there we go. Autocomplete should not be here, by the way. And my email address is admin@example.com. But for me, right now, it helps. I need to put in the same password. If I put in one password, like one letter password in here and click register, it's going to say, Matt, password must be at least 6 characters. There's a flash working right there. I didn't program 6 characters. Identity framework set up a minimum 6-character password length. You can modify that by going in there and changing the password requirements. For example, not just the password length of 6 characters, then maybe make it 10, but also do something like, I need an uppercase character. I need a lowercase character. I need a number. I need some kind of symbol like we normally have, a group of symbols. And there's really good help out there for you to do that. If, for example, for your application, your project number 1, part 3, you set up a more complicated password for me, I'll give you a bonus. All right, so take a look. That's a little bit of research for you to go through it. I just don't have time to show you right now. Otherwise, I would. So I need to put in a more complicated password, a more longer password, actually, is what I need to put. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is going to be my password. And then I'm going to click register. And what this is going to do is, if I haven't registered already, it's going to register for me. Okay, good. We're done. We're in, and we went to main menu. It worked. Let me prove it to you. So I'm going to go kind of close this off for a second. I'm going to stop, and I'm going to go to my SQL Server Object Explorer, and let's take a look at what I've got here. Well, this is what the tables used to look like. Let's refresh. And if I look at my database now, I can see that the tables are back. Right, wait a second, it'll come up. There you go. Those are all the tables again. So it regenerated the tables, almost like I did the reverse of what we've been doing over the last couple weeks. The first week we got together, we used the database first approach to create our database. Right, so we have our database, and then it created our model and our classes. Here, what we've done is we've run code, and we're creating the database from our code. Right, we don't have a model, but it creates a database, almost like a code-first approach kind of thing for security. Why? Because the security model didn't exist, and we're adding security on, right? That's why we're doing it this way. Okay, cool. We've done a registration page. Let's do our login page. All right, so we've got to do that piece next. Let's fix that one up. So register is good, and you're going to see that the login page is very similar, and we're going to have to do some code duplication here. And again, you're going to say, Tom, is there a way of creating a space class that we can use to log in and register and all the stuff we need? And the answer is yes, you can. It's more complex to do. I'm not going to model that here with you, but yes, it's totally possible, and we would do it in a real world scenario. Okay, so let's go back. First, I'll bring up my registration page just from a back-end perspective, so we can have access to this part right here. And then I want to bring up my login page. So here's my login page. Here's the back end. And what I want to do is I want to go to my registration page and grab these 3 lines, because I'm going to need them again, right? So copy them. Go to my login page here, and at the top, paste those in. So I don't have to do that again, right? All right, in my page load, nothing happens. And in my login button, notice there is no cancel button, but my login button does all the work. And if you notice, the first 2 lines, what we need is the same lines we have in our register page. So notice in the register page, we created a user store and user manager object. We have to do the same thing here in our login page. So copy those, go back here, paste them in. Right, same things we put in here, right? One thing we're going to do is make a new user object. So create a new user object, And in the user object, we're going to do something like this. Var user, again, is equal to user manager, right? And this time, instead of when we create our user object, based on what we find, search for our user, search for and create a new user object. So we're going to search for the object in the database and then create the user object based on what we find. So our user manager.find, we're going to use the find technique to search the database for the right user based on username text box, username textbox.text, and password, right? Password textbox.text. We're going to take a look at those 2 text boxes, and we're going to load them into the user manager. And we're going to kind of compare both names, the username and password, to see if we can find a match, right? So if the user finds a match, so if a match is found for the user, then we're going to type this code. User is not equal to null. So we found a match. And what do we do? Well, we're going to use our Authentication Manager again, and the two lines we used before, because we've already done registration or logging in, right? Down here, we kind of created we logged in our user here. We're going to take these two lines again, just like when the result succeeded last time. Take these two lines and go back to our login page and put them in. All right, so we need our Authentication Manager and our user identity, right? Those two things we're going to put in as well. In the Authentication Manager sign in, so we're going to sign in our user again, sign in the user, right? We're going to copy that sign in code again, same sign in code that we used last time, right? However, inside the curly braces, what I want you to put in is persistent is equal to false. So we're not going to contain a persistent connection, or a persistent login with this user. It's not like when they're logged in, they're always logged in. Okay, so that's the second piece. So one is we get the user store. It's just like we did last time. Here we're logging him in and authenticating him, right? And now, of course, what we're going to do is as soon as he's logged in, we're going to redirect him. So redirect to our main menu. He's logged in. That's where we want him to go. So response, redirect. We're going to go to tilde main menu.aspx. Okay, so there we are. So this is our login page. Okay, what if the user doesn't exist? So you look for the user and the password combination doesn't exist. What do we do? So here's the other opposite. So else, well, if the user doesn't exist, throw an error, to the to the alert flash div, right? So we're going to say the status label now .text, right? We're going to make our own status label here, and we're going to say is equal to invalid username or password. We don't want to tell the user which one is wrong, right? Because that means she'll have one step closer to hacking or knocking down our doors here. But we want to tell them something's wrong, and our alert flash visible is equal to true. So we're going to turn that the alert on, saying that it didn't work. Whatever you were trying to do, Mr. User, didn't happen. It failed. All right. Okay, so that's it in a nutshell. That's all we have to put in for our login, right? That seems pretty simple. Okay, let's test it out. So we're going to go to, again, going to go back out here, going to go back to our page, run it. Again, nothing too crazy. It's the same. We're using a couple of the same kinds of pieces of code over and over again. Okay, so here's our login page. Let's test to see if we can log in the user. So we're going to say admin, but this time we'll put in the wrong password. So like a 1-character password and click login. We should get an alert flash comes back that says invalid username or password, right? And same thing if it's the wrong user, right? If it's the wrong username, admin1, but with the right password, well, there is no admin1. So when we log in, we're going to get the same result, right? But what if we log in properly? Then, right, we log in properly, it should redirect us back to the main menu. Okay, so that's how it works. Okay, we've logged in and registered, but holy hey, how do we log out? We need another page for that, right? So let's do that. Now this is really, really simple to log in and log out. Log out is the easiest thing to do. What we're going to do here is we're going to go to Solution Explorer, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to add in a new page. So we're going to go right-click here, add new web form. Now you don't have to make it a master page because it's never going to be shown. This page is only going to work on the back end. So when the page loads, we're going to kick off the page load event, and it's going to do whatever we want it to do. So when we go to that page, that link, it's going to log us out and redirect us. That's all it's going to do. All right, so let's try this out. So we're going to go here and go log out. That's what the page is going to be called. Again, you can use the master page if you wanted to style the page somehow, and you want it to persist for 30 seconds to say logging out or something like that before it logs out. That's up to you. I don't recommend that, but you could. So we're not going to put anything in here, but we are going to go back to the code behind file. Here's the code behind file, and this is where all the magic happens, right? So again, we need those three using statements, and I'm going to get them, of course, from my register page or somewhere like that. So I'm going to get these three using statements. There we go. Or the login page is fine too. And in here, I'm going to put in the using statements that are required to access the identity framework. Okay. Now, what I need to do in here is we need to test. And I'm going to do one of these. I'm going to say var, type this out, Authentication Manager. Our Authentication Manager is going to say, is going to be equal to the HTTP context. We're going to look at the context, and inside the current user, and we're going to use the middleware, the get-on middleware, right, to store the authentication information that exists currently inside this object. This includes all the session information, the currently logged in user and so on, if there's a currently logged in user. Okay, so it's going to be storing it in this Authentication Manager piece, right? Then, so that's, again, store session info and authentication methods, right? in the Authentication Manager object. That's what we're doing, okay? And then what we're going to do is after we do that, we're going to call up the Authentication Manager dot sign out. That's it. So now we're signed out. So sign out of here. Form sign out. Okay, the next thing is we want to redirect. So after we sign out, I want to redirect to the default page now. Because if we're out of it, we can't access the main menu page anymore because the main menu page eventually will be secure. So therefore, we can't access it. We want to go to the landing page. So we're going to say response redirect. We'll go tilde log. Sorry, actually, what we want to probably go is back to the login page. Yeah, might be a better thing to do instead of the landing page. So tilde login.aspx. There we go. Somewhere where not the main menu page anymore. All right, so we're going to kind of log out this way. Okay, let's test it out. Now, if we go back to our Solution Explorer, I want to start off with our default site. So again, we're going to go default. We're going to run it. It's going to build everything, and then I'll upload everything to GitHub. So we're going to go back here. Now, if you notice, we still have a problem. We don't have any links to do our login, log out, all that stuff. We need to build all that in, right? But right now, we have the capability of doing something like this. I can go in and go, register. If I can go to the register page, it's right there. I can register. I can also go to the login page. So there's my login page. And I can log in as an admin user. So I go admin, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then click login. And then, bam, we're inside the main menu page. Cool. When I log out, right, I don't have a link here again, but I can go log out, right? So log out. And then it'll log me out and put me back to my login page. So right now, log in, log out, all that security stuff is there. We're halfway to where we really have to be. We need to secure our pages, and we need right now some links to let us know where we are, all right? Because right now, we don't even know how to get to the login page or anything else. Let's update those links now. That's the next piece. All right, so we'll stop this one. And what we need to do is I'm going to go pull up a Solution Explorer and pull up our user controls, our nav bar. Here's our nav bar. And if you notice, our links are all kind of linked together, are all kind of piecemeal together, right? Like, for example, our home page. Here's our home page. And then we have our students, courses, and departments. And then we have our contact page, right? Well, we want to add in a menu page in here, a logout page in here, and then some other stuff. We want to group these things together. So this is where my menu page is going to go. So I'm just going to copy this one and put it over here. So we're going to call this menu. And it's going to be main menu that we're going to access. We're going to update these links, main menu. And I think I use something called for the main menu, I think I use some kind of sign, excuse me, that I put in play. Give me 1 second while I pull this up. I want to make sure that we match up with what we have. So what I did was, in our menu, right, our main menu, I added an icon that is that makes sense, right, which is a map sign icon. So map signs. So map-signs. There we go. Okay, so that's our main menu. We want to add in our login, our logout, and our register pages. For me, my login and register pages should probably hang out outside of this private area. So think about this as an area that only when we can get there when we're logged in, right? But this home, we're always going to be able to get to, logged in or logged out. Contact, same thing, logged in or logged out, we can get to it, right? And I want it in this order. So we got to be very careful how we plot this together. But then I want an area where I can only get to if I'm logged out, all right? Only logged out. So I'm going to kind of paste another one of these links. We're going to call this login, right? And this is going to be our login page. And we're going to use this sign-in icon. Font awesome. It should say login. By the way, this should say main menu, right? And now we're going to copy this again, and we're going to update this. So this is going to be saying register. Here's our registration page. We can see them. And this would be, if I'm not wrong, for the registration page, it is user plus, user-plus. So user-plus. Again, this is the icon I chose. You can certainly choose other ones. Also, we want to make our logout page, but typically we don't want to have our logout page being available to the, on the outside. We want to kind of only be available when you're logged in, so you can log out. All right, so we're going to kind of copy that, put it down here, and we're going to call this logout. We're never going to actually navigate to this page again. It's just going to be a place where we can use a link that we can use to log out. And again, this is going to be sign out. So instead of user plus, sign dash out. Sign dash out. There we go. Okay, so we got main menu. We have log out. We have log in, register. All the links are there for what we need. Let's take a look and see how it looks now. We still have some problems we need to correct. Like, for example, I want to be able to persist our active page. And that means I got to go back inside my nav bar and change my switcheroo, that we use. But now this is what our bar would look like. I can go to my login page. Oh, this shouldn't say login. It should say register. Let's fix that. And my main menu. There's my main menu. And then there's my login page. So that should be a log out. So I have to change these words. So login, login, login. Let's change those back to where there should be. So this should say log out. Okay, this one should say register, and we'll be able to do that. I almost did that this morning too, but I had people telling me, don't do that, it's a login. They caught it. Okay, so we have these pages, but we want to persist the active page. So again, we do that by going to hitting F7 and going back to here and adding in some additional pages to persist the active page. So we're going to kind of copy and paste. One of them is, we called it, the first title was Contoso Menu. So that's what I called it. And the next one, sorry, this one will be menu. And the next one would be login and register, right? Those are the two new links. Login. The login attributes. And register. So clickety-click. Register. Okay, so we've done all the links, so persistent will look okay. One thing to note is that Ari from one of our classes has come up with a solution. It's up on Slack, right? So if you want to look at Slack, there is a simpler solution for this. And what this does is he creates something called an active class. And what you can do is it searches the title, and depending on what the title is, it'll add the class active attribute to the page automatically. So it doesn't matter. It won't kind of go through a switch. It'll just take that whatever it is and replace the information with what we have here. So this is kind of in one, you never have to update this. The challenge with this is you have to make sure that the title matches what you want to do, and then it should work fine. Okay, so when you code out your list items, they have to match with the title, okay, appropriately. Okay, but this works okay, and if you wanted to use this way of switching as opposed to mine, you're okay. And on a Slack, I know most of us are on it. Some people still are not using it. I'm going to be making announcements here in the general channel. Maybe it's a good idea to put our developer stuff in the developer channel, so you can certainly sign up for that. And he already did it. He populated in the developer channel for any kind of like code you want to share with anybody. You may want to put it in there. Random thoughts are for things like, how you feel about Orlando, the shootings that happened there. I feel pretty sad, and that's probably what I'd put in there, right? For those kind of random thoughts, or any kind of, if you want to write some poetry, put it in there, right? Don't write your poetry and put it in the general channel. That's a communication around what our class is all about, right? Okay, so let's go back to here, and let's run this thing finally again, our nav bar, and see if we have persistence and all that. And then it might be a good place to take a short break, and then come back after because we've gotten this piece done, and we're gonna want the next piece to secure our website. So up until now, we've created our links. They all work, right? So here's our login page, our register page, our main menu page, students. We still have access to that, courses, departments, and logout, right? Even if we're not logged out, we can still click the logout button. It's not going to hurt, right? And if I log in, I can log in as admin. The problem is anybody can get to the main menu page. Oop, I didn't put the password in properly. Right? Anyone can get there, even if I'm not logged in. I can still click log out, and it'll take me back here. But there's no way of really seeing that I'm logged in or logged out. Everyone can access everything still. We got to fix this when we get back from break. One last thing I need to do, which I haven't done for this morning's class, is I want to create my Azure link for all this, to test it on Azure. Because one thing is testing it locally, and another thing is to make it work on Azure. So let's make that happen now. I know I got some people came up to me and said, hey, we didn't do an Azure link. You're right. So here it is, a really quick thing on Azure. So portal.azure.com. And it's just loving me on Azure. You can see how Azure loves me right now, right? Our sign-in context is not working. Who knows why? It's not working for you either? Maybe Azure's down. Woo! Or our portal's down. There's also manage.windowsazure.com. I can always do it that way too. And I'm wondering if it's because oh yeah, it's down too. Even this one's down. I tried to go in the other way. It didn't work. So we'll leave Azure until after the break. Hopefully it'll be back up. If not, that's okay too. But it's funny that for Microsoft to be down, it's huge. So let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll do the security piece to it all, and we'll secure our pages.